Hi and welcome back to Tales from Tech Support, /I don't work here lady. In today's episode, I don't work here, but I wish I did lol. Dad, 50M, gets mistaken for mariachi band member, gets free food and free drinks as compensation. I don't work at this location. It's morphin' time. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. I don't work here, but I wish I did lol. About 20 minutes ago I'm in Sephora. I had gotten an email with a discount code and figured I'd treat myself to some new makeup for being an adult and getting my vaccine, as well as replacing the rotors on my car. So I'm browsing the eyeshadow, looking for a palette I want, but don't already have. I'm wearing a tidy tank top, tidy bandana in my hair, and a pair of paint-stained jeans from when I helped paint my dad's fence a few days ago, so unless there's some sort of casual Wednesday I'm unaware of, I certainly don't look like an employee. Due to the panorama, you can't test the makeup like normal. This isn't a problem for me, I know what brands I like and work well for me. But apparently some lady had a huge problem with this, because the next thing I know there's a tap on my shoulder, so I turn around. I'm face to face with what I can best describe as Mimi, from the Drew Carey Show, 2.0. Her face had so much makeup caked onto it I could see where she applied different shade concealers very clearly, almost like lines on her face. Her eyes were more done up than a fashion couture model during Fashion Week, but were smeared like she had just got done a 4-hour crying session. I want to try that one, as she pointed at a colorful palette. I bet you do. What's that supposed to mean? She said with a sneer. It looks like your eyeshadow could use a touch-up. I replied with a shrug. How dare you insult me? I'll have your job. She even kinda stomped as she said this, like a angry rhinoceros. Good luck with that, but if this is how you treat employees, I'm glad you got me instead. They don't get paid enough to put up with your BS. For whatever reason she's still not convinced that I don't work there, and she stomps off to find a manager, still shrieking about disrespect and how she's never and blah blah. I figure the manager will take it and go back to looking at the palettes. Not so lucky. About a minute later she comes huffing back, manager in tow, looking like a poor pup who had just been beat. That one, she screams while pointing at me, that's the one who insulted me, and I demand you do something about it right now, she cried, again stomping her feet on the last two syllables. The manager looks at me, looks at Mimi, shakes her head and said, "Ma'am, she clearly doesn't work here. She's a customer just like you. I'm not sure what you want me to do. I'm sorry if she upset you, but unless she put her hands on you or threatened you, there's not much I can do." Realization slowly washed over the woman and her face went from being red like a cherry from being angry, to being pink like bubblegum from being embarrassed. She stuttered out half an apology, "Oh. I'm so." "Yeah," then said to the manager, "Well, I still want to try that palette." At this point my mind was made up. There was only one of those palettes left on the floor, and while they might have had more in the back, she was going to wait for it. Without a word I grabbed the palette and started walking towards the line. Mimi nearly starts crying at this point. Did you see that? Can she do that? I wanted that palette. The manager simply responded, "Ma'am, you asked to sample the palette, and unfortunately right now due to the redacted, I can't let you do that. As I already stated, she is a customer, and if she wants to buy that palette she is absolutely allowed. If you're going to keep causing a scene, I'm going to need to ask you to leave." Mimi turned on her heels and went to sulk in the corner of the store. I checked out, and have been sitting in my car waiting for her to leave the store, so I can go back and return this hideous palette. Dad, 50M, gets mistaken for mariachi band member, gets free food and free drinks as compensation. This story was told to me by my dad, so this is all secondhand and some details may be missing. Background: my dad is Hispanic and looks it, dark skin, brown eyes and a mustache. He also takes pride in his appearance, and he looks like a refined cowboy when he dresses up: straw hat, neatly pressed button-up shirt, black jeans and spit-shined boots. He's very social and his work is his second family, so if there is a party, a convention or any other kind of get-together, he will be there. Story time. Pre-pandemic, my dad and his co-workers had checked into their hotel and decided to go to the lobby, that had a taco bar set up for the guests. It had discounted margaritas, a live mariachi band for entertainment and unlimited food, so it was perfect for my dad and his buddies to have dinner and relax after a long day. This was an informal gathering, so my dad was wearing his cowboy getup and everyone who knew him knew who he was. He was milling around, making his rounds and making sure to shake hands and talk to everyone there. At one point, he went in line to the taco bar to have his dinner, and how he put it, a snooty woman who called herself the manager tapped him on the shoulder and started pestering him. K is Karen and D is my dad. K, excuse me, sir. This bar is only for the guests. D, I am a guest. K, let me see your key pass. This bar is for guests only, not the band members. And this is where my dad started getting mad. D, why should I show you my key pass? Why won't you look at my friends' key passes? He pointed to his other, fair-skinned friends and called them out. Why are you picking out the Mexican in the line and not the other white guys? One other thing everyone knows about my dad is that he will be nice only once, then he will get in your face if you keep pushing him. My dad tried to be polite at first, but once that stubborn Karen manager would not let it go, my dad decided to escalate the situation. Once he did not back down from this woman, she was the one who tried to apologize, but then my dad said the magic words. I want to talk to your supervisor. I want to talk to him about your conduct. The woman's supervisor was called, and even though the man tried to cover for her, my dad was already pissed off and was not going to go quietly. He accused the woman manager and the supervisor of being racially insensitive, and kept asking why he was the only one being called out. Now, this was not the first time my father had been mistaken for a service worker, and he always believed in making the accusers so uncomfortable that they will keep him in mind next time they wrongfully profile another person. Now, he has the entire lobby and the rest of the guests listening in and most likely on his side, judging Karen and her supervisor. The supervisor was red in the face and was finding any way to de-escalate the situation. Finally, he apologized for the 50th time to my dad and asked if there was anything they could do to make this right. My dad seized this opportunity and said, in that case, I would like to have my dinner at this taco bar for free, and I want my table to have free drinks all night. The supervisor was quick to jump at the chance to calm my dad down and satisfy the rest of the guests. My dad still tells this story, and even though he can get up on his high horse, this time, it was warranted. My dad is and always will be the proud Hispanic cowboy who takes no crap from anyone, especially snooty Karens who runs their mouths way too much. I don't work at this location. About 7 years ago, I worked for a national, U.S. electronics retailer. During this time, I visited my grandparents in another state and found that they were very much in the market for a new TV. So Grandpa and I went shopping to the local location of my employer so that I could help him pick one out and use my employee discount to buy it. After a while, Grandpa had narrowed his choices down to 3 TVs and was looking at them carefully to decide. I noticed 2 people staring at us. Grandpa didn't. One of them approached me and said, likely more paraphrased than directly quoted this many years later, I'm sorry to bother you, but I can't find an employee and you seem knowledgeable. She then asked me a pretty basic question which I answered and pointed her in the general direction of the part she needed before turning my attention back to Grandpa. About a minute later, the second person who had been watching us approached and said extremely sharply and angrily, this old man is obviously going a long time to pick a TV. Why don't you just help me in the meantime? Grandpa was not very happy to hear the tone of voice directed at a member of his family. My grandfather was a World War II Marine and then an auto mechanic and later a carpenter. His experiences in the war made him very much a man of peace. But he was always, until the last decade or two of his life, a very strong, imposing, and formidable person who expects to be obeyed. In his 50s, he broke up a Chicago street fight by grabbing both men and ordering them to walk away from each other and not turn back. But when we were shopping for the TV, he looked pretty feeble, an 86-year-old man with a walker and an oxygen tank. But he turned around to face the interloper and in a very steady, authoritative, and commanding voice said, "My granddaughter will not be helping you today. You are going to apologize to her for your rudeness, and then you are going to find an employee and politely ask for assistance." The man did just that. He apologized to me and Grandpa, who told him off for wasting his breath on apologizing to Grandpa, found an employee, and meekly asked for assistance. Of course, when we went to check out, I put my own foot in my mouth. I had checked the employee pricing on Grandpa's TV, but the total came to about $30 more. I asked twice if they were sure they had my discount in before realizing the extra charge was sales tax. In my defense, I lived in one of the 5 U.S. states without sales tax at that time. I wanted the earth to open and swallow me right then. My employer was very strict about us using the employee discount only personal purchases, so I paid at the cash register and mentioned that it was a gift for my grandparents. Grandpa then loudly proclaimed he was going to write me a check for the amount, and I responded that I would never cash it so that the person checking us out wouldn't have reason to refuse the sale. I absolutely did intend to cash it though, since I really could not afford to buy them the TV at that time. Turns out we were both right though. Grandpa did write a check to pay for the TV, but so did my parents, who were much better off financially than my grandparents. I cashed Mom and Dad's check and tore up Grandma and Grandpa's. As we were leaving the store with the TV, I overheard 2 employees talking about how cute Grandpa was. Luckily for them, Grandpa was hearing impaired and missed that conversation. He did not take kindly to being referred to as cute or otherwise infantilized. He did overhear their next comment, which was that he reminded them of their own grandfathers, and found that gratifying though. It's morphin' time. This happened a while back, 6 months? If the girl this story is about has posted this somewhere, I apologize because I looked and could not find it. It's her story. While in a box chain with my wife, I head over to the electronics section to browse around and wait out a husband's slow death of I just need a few things. There is girl there that I am guessing is in high school, since she had high school sweatshirt on the same color of the box store's colors. She is looking at cell phone cases when middle-aged man walks up to her and asks her to get the key to a display case for Xbox or PlayStation something. I was not paying attention to either of them until I hear the "excuse me." This girl is 5'0" in a sweatshirt and jeans. The guy is close to 6 foot and dressed in business casual, and is very confident in himself. He doesn't even suspect how outmatched he is with this kid. She says, "I don't work here." And the self-important male Karen starts. I am not going to get the dialogue between them exactly right, since I have nowhere near Hero Girl's ability to think my feet like she did. Plus it went on for a couple minutes, and would be forever on this post. MK, then why are you behind the counter? HG, I am not behind the counter. MK, you're by the counter straightening inventory, so you better help me, or I will get your manager. I cannot remember this part without hearing, "It's morphin' time," in my head. I actually start to go over the help the kid out, but there was no need. HG turns to face MK, "I am looking for a specific case for my iPhone, whatever number, so are you going to help me or not?" MK, "Wait, what? I don't work here." HG, "Neither do I." I am not going to get into the whole thing, but he would demand something of her, then she would demand something from him, and it would end the same way every time. MK, "I don't work here." HG, "Neither do I." This went on for a couple of minutes and HG pulled out all the stops. He would say something and she would come back with a sick grandbaby, son lost his job, dad was dying of cancer, mom was in an accident, daughter getting married. She had to have 5 parents and 10 kids, and the whole time this guy just kept going. They threatened to have each other fired so many times it was head spinning. As he got mad and moved closer to her, she would say, 6 feet, or I will tell your manager you are violating your store's distancing policy. He would back up a little and say, I don't work here. Neither do I. That happened twice. The woman that was working electronics came out and asked what the problem was, and they both tried to have each other fired. She tried to say neither of them worked there and finally said, I don't get paid enough for this stuff, and left them to it. A woman with a small child bumped into me from behind and then started watching with me. The child tugged on her arm to go and she said, Hush baby, I'm watching this. That made us both chuckle. A manager came up behind us and looked at the scene and said, Really? He finally tries to intervene, but can't get a word in edgewise. It ends finally with both of them saying at the exact same time, I don't work here. Neither do I. Think Abbott and Costello, who's on first. The MK looks at the girl, then the manager, then the girl, then the manager. The manager finally says, Out of the 3 of us I am the only one that works here now, how can I help you? HG, where are the iPhone, whatever number, cases? Manager points to an aisle and HG says pleasantly, Thank you. She absolutely bounces over to the aisle without a care in the world. Manager turns to MK, and you sir. He stammers for a minute and finally, sheepishly explains what he needs. The woman that bumped into me says better than anything I have seen all week on Netflix. Me, I rush to find my wife and tell her what happened. So when you hear the excuse me, say something like there you are, where is the ketchup? Works like a charm. Finally, if HG reads this, either make a post of what you said or post it in the comments. You were brilliant.